it doesn't matter how safe you say it is. It's the perception of safety. So in our continual discussion on the idea of safety in archery due to the recent events, I've had a lot of people come up and say, well, you're overreacting, you're exaggerating. How can one video cause such a big ban on archery everywhere? And some people have even attacked me for trying to take away their personal freedoms and so on. And what people might not realize, and especially if you're new to this channel, new to archery, or just following along the bandwagon, what you might not realize is that I've already fought this battle. So a year ago, there was an incident, or several incidents, which led to the suspension of my archery club. And as the club president, I fought a very long battle to get the club reopened. We won the battle, but very barely. So what this exposed was a lot about archery and safety. Not that we were doing anything wrong, but that people thought we were. If you want the full details, I have a video on my channel called Club in Crisis Risk Analysis, where we'll compare the risk report that was sent to us and our response to it. In fact, I'll show you very quickly. This is the report that was sent to us by the insurance company that was hired to do this assessment. And basically, it can be summed up as a 5-hour last-minute assignment done by an intern. Basically, everything is wrong. Now, I'm saying this because I'm biased. I'm saying this because a lot of it actually is factually wrong. The names and locations are wrong. The directions are wrong. And basically, they did the entire report without involving our club. So they made a lot of assumptions. They took photos and they drew lines where they thought things would go, and they concluded that the field was unsuitable for archery. And that was used by the council, and they took it. They said, "That's it. We're going to suspend everything. Prove us wrong." Hashtag change my mind. And that was a very hard task because everything here is categorically wrong, and yet they took it at face value as fact. Our response was this 50-page monster, which I primarily wrote. There was some proofreading, editing done, but this is primarily my work. And we refuted every page, every section, every statement, because there was nothing correct about that report. And I'm salty, yeah, because this was such a mess to go through. You know, when the people in power have the power to close you down, you can't fluff around with like, no, wrong. No, you have to actually do it properly. And this was an absolute mess. So we ran everything. We ran, we had logs of communications. We did modeling, computer modeling for arrow, arrow arc, and the risk of shooting over a fence or into a house. We did a bunch of stuff. We took like photos from like Google Street View from like 8 years ago to prove the safety field. It was absolute messy. Okay, so this was basically what happened, and you would think this would be overwhelming proof that things were actually safe. Well, it was proof. Okay, so the thing was that when we went to meet with the council, they came to us. We sat down with the council staffer. He was a manager, not the politician in charge, but the staffer, the people who actually run the day-to-day business. We sat down with her, and we were expecting at least some kind of civil discussion. And her opening line was, "Well, we know that archery is a dangerous sport." So, despite the fact that we had brought up that there was no injury involving an arrow in the entirety of the sport, that no club had ever shot and hurt someone, let alone killed someone, ever. The fact that there was no proof, no evidence, despite these supposed guidelines that were followed by the assessor, the fact that there was no precedence to prove that such an incident has happened and is likely to happen. First thing she said was, archery is a dangerous sport. Despite the fact that universally, archery is one of the safest sports ever. Next to shooting, by the way. Alright, one of the safest sports with the lowest injury rates. They said it was dangerous. These are the people whose minds you need to change. Not mine. I'm on your side. I want you to do archery. I want you to be safe in doing archery. Not having bans, not having regulations. I want your club to function. I want you to shoot the way you want to shoot. But the people who decide whether you can or can't are the people who are running your governments. The people who are running your councils. Those are the people whose minds you need to change. And their decisions are driven by the people who vote them in. And those people are the ones who think archery is dangerous. They will tell others that it's dangerous. And the councillors have no choice but to take action against dangerous activity. Now, this web of interconnection, it's something which boggles us as archers and archery clubs, because these things don't make logical sense. But we are a bit more informed than the general public. Now, what triggered this incident that forced us to fight this safety battle was that, well, there were two incidents. One was one of our arrows hit the wall of a house at the end of the street, which was built after the club was there. So the council built the house, and then they said, oh, well, you'll be fine. And we said, no, well, something's going to happen. And about 10 years later, bang, arrow hits the house after 10 years. So that was we reported that. We didn't have to, but we reported it, and we told them, look, we got to do something about it. And we were suspended. But the thing that, we can take some responsibility for that. But the thing which we were pissed off about was that before that, a resident reported an arrow in the driveway. It wasn't our arrow. We didn't shoot it. It wasn't from us. It wasn't during club sessions. It wasn't anything to do with us. Because, of course, anyone in the public can buy and own a bow. There's no rule against that. Thankfully, there isn't. So, some random person from the general public shot an arrow into a driveway, and we were blamed for it. And despite having no proof that it came from us, it was constantly brought up in counter reports, in risk assessments, including that one, that an arrow was found in a driveway. And that was pinned on us. We had nothing to do with this. But this one arrow from one dickhead in the community nearly shut down our club. This sort of thing can be pinned on you too. You know how archery is a dangerous sport. Despite the fact that there are far more dangerous sports involving injuries, if not fatalities, like in cricket or football, that promote violence, the dangerous sport is archery. But I'm not here to change your mind, because you know it's safe. We know it's safe. But the person who made the decision thought archery was dangerous. Despite everything we presented, they still had the assumption archery is a dangerous sport. And we could not change her mind. Despite the fact that we brought the entire staff out to demonstrate that it was physically impossible with the current arrangement of the field for an arrow to leave the field and hit someone, they still said it was dangerous. Why? I still remember what she said to me during that meeting. It doesn't matter how safe you say it is. It's the perception of safety. what people perceive, what people think and believe, is what affects the future of the sport. People's perceptions are based off their exposure and their experience. And in today's world, hardly anybody has exposure to archery. The average person only knows like Hawkeye, Lord of the Rings, and medieval history. People don't know enough about it to realize that it's actually a pretty safe pastime, especially today. I can prove this to you, right? When you tell someone that you do archery, what's the first thing they ask you? I'm willing to bet that's most likely, do you hunt? Now, I don't. I have nothing against hunting. You might, but that's the first thing people associate with archery is hunting. So already, the general public has this perception that all archery, sporting or otherwise, is for hunting. And in some places, hunting carries a certain connotation where it's very negative and bad. And I don't necessarily agree with this, but that's the connotation. Hunting involves killing innocent animals. Archers are hunters. Therefore, I'm a hunter. Well, where that come from? Now, that's the first part. So first, they'll ask you, do you hunt? The second thing they'll ask you is, can you split an arrow? And the third thing they might ask you is, can you shoot an apple with someone's head? And if we do a survey of everyone who's done archery and what their friends and relatives think we do, it's going to be one of those things. Do you hunt? Do you split arrows? Do you shoot apples off people's heads? You might see where this is going. This is public perception. Okay? And according to this council staff member, she was solely responsible for determining the fate of our club. That was what was most important. What people perceive that we did. This is why I'm taking such a strong stance against any promotion and celebration of risky behavior, of seemingly reckless, high-risk stunts and tricks and activities. Because what someone does will affect the perception of archery. And that in turn can affect you. Not directly, but circling around the immediate truth and fact that surrounds you and your practice and your sport. Someone else's actions can make you look bad. We've seen this time and time again. In my experience, in my club, in my field, we always get this. Whenever a news report comes with a pet dog or cat being shot by an arrow, the questions are asked to the nearest club. Did you do this? Who did this? Can you tell us who did this? We don't know. People who do archery wouldn't do this. These are people who have bows. But we get pinned. Archery clubs are for hunters, and hunters shoot animals, and my cat is an animal, and my cat has an arrow through its head, so therefore this club should be shut down. It's a stupid logic chain, but it comes around and around and around, and whether you like it or not, this is what we're facing. I've had my local school, the school I work at, someone found an arrow in the field at the school. And when it was brought to the staff, one of them said, "Oh, there's an archery club nearby." That's my club. Why would we be shooting arrows into a school when we have a whole field to ourselves? And yet, that's the perception the general public has. We shoot things. So, when there's a very popular video that's being spread around of archers shooting things off people's heads, that's going to affect the perception of the general public. Because they think, oh, these people are archers. And I know that archers shoot things off people's heads, so if they're doing it, that means other people are doing it too. And I really shudder to think of what might have happened if a year ago this council staffer, instead of saying archery is dangerous, she posed the question, do you shoot at people? Because in her mind, if she's seen this video or her kid showed her this video, she's ingrained the image of archers doing this. And I love the memes about, what people think we do and what I actually do. What people think we do is doing this sort of crap, which of course we don't, and we'll never encourage it. And yet that's what people think we do. And this incorrect perception has been falsely spread, intentional or not, is going to affect you in some way. And I'm hoping that whatever I do doesn't affect what you do negatively. For those of you who are attacking me for stripping away your personal freedoms, no. I want you to keep your personal freedoms. I want you to be able to do the archery you want to do. I want all people to be able to buy archery equipment for recreation, for sport, for whatever they want to do it for. I want clubs to run openly, not underground secret societies. This is silly. It's archery, not shooting clubs or fight clubs. It's just archery. There's no reason why it needs to be any more dangerous than it is right now, because it isn't dangerous. And there's no reason to make it more dangerous. But when people drive up this dangerous image through public stunts that are spread virally, it doesn't make us look better. For you archers out there who want to shoot the way you want to shoot, I'm not your enemy. The enemy is bureaucracy. Because we have to prove to the people in control that it's safe and that we can do it fine. And those people have to prove it to their superiors, and the superiors have to prove it to the councils, the politicians, and the politicians have to prove it to the general public. And it's a mess. But I don't want to stop archery. The complete opposite. I want everyone to do archery. But we can't do this if the people who determine what we can and can't do think that it's dangerous. And it's not helped by people who are very open about showing off how risky and daredevilly they can be. That's what I'm trying to raise awareness of. That's why we take such a strong stance against people who go rogue and decide to do these things like shoot at horses, or shoot at endangered animals, or shoot pets, or shoot things off people's heads. All these things, at some point or another, were brought up and used against us. That is why any sort of reckless behavior should not be celebrated. Because all it does is spread this perception of archery being a dangerous sport. And it isn't. That is why, as archers, we do have responsibility. Whether you sign a form or not, whether you join a club or association or shoot in your own backyard or go hunting, we all have an ethical responsibility. And if we don't fulfill that individually, that means archery as a whole is negatively affected. This is why, especially at archery club, the rules are so strict. It's not because we're snobby or stuffy or we're trying to bubble wrap everybody. It's because we need to assure every single person who walks by that we are doing something that is absolutely safe. That's why there's no error margin in terms of who can walk where or who can shoot at what time. It is so codified that we can prove, should it come to it in a court of law, that these protocols were followed. These safety rules and regulations and protocols might not affect you or apply to you if you shoot in your own time and space, but what you do can affect us. Let's just keep that in mind. That's why we all have an obligation to be safe shooters. Unlike with other issues like gun control, archery does not have powerful lobby groups to protect the integrity of the sport and the regulation of its practice. If a government decides that, archery is unnecessary, no one does it, it's dangerous, let's ban bows, let's close archery clubs, we actually have very little clout. I'm being realistic, guys, alright? When we fought the battle, we were fortunate we had the support of our state association, but even that did very little to change the mind of the person who said archery is dangerous. and we were basically on our own. We had to write the report ourselves. It was vetted, it was supported by a representative, but we were basically on our own. And if our club folded, what's going to happen to other clubs? Should there be a counsellor who decides, oh, there's been a report, there's been a risk, let's just prevent it from happening? Because they need to protect themselves. They have to cover their own asses, and we have to cover our asses too. And that's why I'm so safety conscious. That's why I drive this message home. When we do things on the channel, when we talk about archery and technique and safety, when these things pop up, because that's the impact it will have. Again, as archers, you and I know our limits of what is safe, what is possible, and we know archery is safe. But we're not the ones who need to be convinced. You don't have to change my mind. I know archery is safe. I want to keep it that way. But the people who make the decisions are not archers. One of the fundamental reasons why archery is inherently one of the safest sports is because we don't shoot at other people. But culturally and traditionally, archery has been seen as a tool of warfare. And even today, it's regarded as a tool for hunting. And the negative perception always wins out. I could do 100 safety videos on YouTube, but one viral dangerous stunt will undo all that. And maybe this one video might not affect you or your club or your practice, but maybe in 5 years' time, a passionate group of archers want to open a new range, and the person in charge will sit down and go, you know, archery is a dangerous sport.